I'm Survival.
I'm Bushcraft.
And today we're going to talk to you about caching. I'm going to start with, what is a cache? A cache, it's any supply that is stored that you will utilise that is pre-positioned. So, in other words, you've put it in place ahead of when you need it, so it's there, ready for you to grab when you need. Usually caches are buried to conceal them. As such, you need to make sure that it is sealed so water can't get in. You also need to address condensation, as you don't want condensation forming inside the cache ruining the items inside. Why would you cache? Well, as I said, supplies pre-positioned. One less thing to worry about having to take with you when you're out and about. One huge problem with caching is, in most parts of the world, unless it is on private land that you have permission to actually set the cache on, it would be considered a form of littering. Yes, a point of it is it supplies therefore you need them. Yes, it's usually out of the sight and people wouldn't know, but you must comply with all local laws specific to your area. And we here at Bushcraft and Survival do not condone breaking the law. So please make sure it's on private land that you have a lease to, and that you have permission to place a cache on. So Bushcraft's going to talk a bit more about where you'd put a cache. It's important to have key landmarks that are not going to change to locate your cache from.
Yeah, absolutely. So survival, I suppose, a cache, what it really represents is the ultimate form of digging the well before you need it. It's having those essential items on hand, and as such, you should probably try and make that coincide with what your plan is. So whether or not you're bugging in or bugging out, whether or not there's particular locations that you plan to, or particular landmarks that you plan to stop past. Let's just say, for example, that you're looking to bug out in a particular emergency situation that you are planning for. It's going to be you and a couple of your buddies that have formed a little group that are going to be bugging out together. It's quite likely that you'll move from one position to another position until you move to your final spot. Obviously, as Survival mentioned, looking after all local laws and legalities when it comes to caching, it may very well be the case that you might have a small store of supply goods at a local business that your friend owns, or at their home, or whatever it might be. So that way, on your route, as you're moving from A to B and to obviously your final zone, you can pick those caches up and resupply as the plan is put into action.
So, one thing to note, like a bug out bag, a cache doesn't have to be buried. It could be, as Bushcraft said, at a mate's local business. As long as you've got permission from said mate, leave a little cache there, sealed up, out of the way, so you can grab it if you need.
Yeah.
Here at Assessed Bushcraft and Survival, we're lucky enough to be here on the Assessed Bushcraft and Survival homestead, and as such it's private property, and we're permitting ourselves to actually bury a cache. So we'll be putting together a cache, we'll be sealing it as best as we can, and we'll be burying it. We'll then come back in 1 year's time. Don't worry guys, we're writing down the date and time. We will rip it out of the ground at this exact date and time, 1 year's time. And that is of when we film it, not necessarily when we upload it to YouTube. We will be looking at how the goods have survived, what we could do to improve it, and we'll be also looking at ease of actually recovering the supply cache.
Yeah, perfect. What we have here and what you'll see in a moment is actually just a host of goods that we've picked up from a local grocery store. Just some items. We kind of set ourselves a limit. We said, look, if we can try and get this under $60, there might be some items in here that you can use for various parts of your survival plan.
The good news is we managed to bring it in right on $50 flat, and that's at the current 2016 Australian market rates. So because we are a remote island nation, everything's more expensive. Also because our population, based on where we are in the world, is so small, everything here is a lot more expensive. You will most likely find it easier to produce the same cache for a lot less money, depending on where you live in the world.
Yeah. And look, there are some things that we've got in here that we've double purchased, items that we already had on hand somewhere in the loft, but because we were trying to create something specifically on the day with that budget in mind.
And realistic to what anyone could do without having anything to start with.
Yeah, perfect. So look, we'll jump in now. We'll give you an idea of what it is that we've got to put in the pack, and some potential uses and things you might want to do with it if for whatever reason you found yourself in a survival situation with that item. So as you can see, we've got all of our cache items laid out here so you can see them nicely. We've picked up a really nice rigid storage box from our local hardware store. Really cost effective, that one actually, especially for the quality.
How much was it exactly, Bushcraft?
That was $11.
Well, that's a wonderful price for a sturdy container.
Absolutely, they were surprising. Storage containers, you can spend a lot on those, and sometimes the quality is questionable.
Yeah, we saw this really wonderful container they had there for huge amounts of equipment. Something that we're actually considering down the track for storing our filming equipment when moving from location to location. But that was almost $300.
Yep.
But when we saw this container, perfect for what we wanted to do, we were just amazed.
Yeah,
blown
absolutely.
away by it for $11.
We saw
Good deal.
We saw one other item. It was probably about half the capacity, maybe a quarter of the capacity, but it was far more rigid in construction. But where this was $11, that other one was probably sitting more around the $90 mark, which, again, it was very well made, and depending on what you want to do, it's important to not just have pricing consideration, but also your plan of action in consideration, and what it's going to be used for, how long it's going to be stored, and all that kind of stuff. But for the purpose of this video, we thought that was a little extravagant, especially considering as we had the $50 limit on what we were purchasing. Something else that we have here, and we didn't actually factor this into our price concerns. Obviously, we have these, in our bug out bags, bug in supplies, in the pantry, all over the place really. But a couple of these pre-made MREs. So those are really good. We've actually got the what else we got here? So we've got some toilet paper, non-branded. Again, I think these ones are actually no cost because we had those on hand already.
But they were bought in a huge bulk of like 48 rolls, so they're less than 50 cents a roll. So
yeah, absolutely.
Call it nothing. I mean, everyone's house will have toilet paper. Just
Absolutely.
nick a roll or two every so often.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, some of these things here we've double purchased just for the fact that we wanted to, see what could we get from that local store and put together. I got to say, there were slim pickings. There are certain things that I'd like to have in here that, again, when you're putting through yours and consideration of what your plan is, you might go out of your way to put in. Certain items, luxury items, you might want to embellish on. Like, for example, something that might go really well in here is, an Old Faithful knife. Either a fixed blade or a
Folder.
Oh yeah, or a folding knife. But of course, our local store doesn't sell those en masse, nor would one of those necessarily make our the price of this under the $50 target. But
Proper decent knife will be whatever you're pretty much willing to pay.
Absolutely. But with that in mind, again, those are luxury items that if you can put them in and it goes well with your plan and your budget, then by all means do it. So again, this is like I said, zero cost toilet paper that we had here. We've put them in plastic bags.
Sorry to butt in. One thing I was going to say is, it is worth noting that because you're not actually going to be off a cache, expensive items such as a good quality knife, we would advise against putting in a cache unless you know that cache is on private property that you or a very trusted friend owns, because that way you can monitor it and you don't risk it being stolen. We encourage you to have things like that of value on your person or in your pack, not in a cache. And sorry, Bushcraft, why have we got the toilet paper in snap-lock bags?
Yeah, look, we put it in snap-lock bags for preservation purposes and an extra layer of boundary to try and keep these from perishing. If the main container does fail, and we will be trying to do a little bit of waterproofing in that, it already does make a good seal with that lid, but at the same time you want to try and give all of your items the best chance of survival. If there were to be some moisture or if a bug was to invest, there's some time into getting into it. This is just going to give an extra layer of protection before it's going to be able to get in and just destroy and create degradation in the toilet paper.
And from a survival standpoint, it's yet another water carrying device, that snap-lock bag. Absolutely. And that's essential in the bush.
No, exactly right. From there, we've got a little book here, which in this case is just a blank exercise book. But that could represent, if you wanted to do a journal or something like that, you've got something there. If you wanted to write down any particular locations,
notes, maps,
exactly,
resources, you name it, observations. it's always handy to have something you can make notes in.
Absolutely.
You could potentially, in a really worst case scenario, if you know that you're truly done for, your last letter to the world, anything you could write in there. It could be observations, for example, or documenting if you are having a struggle but you feel you want to share it with the world, once you've been rescued. Well, feel free to jot it down.
Also, obviously, a bit of tinder.
Yep, makes great kindling, burns very quickly. That's one thing to keep in mind, guys.
Yep.
Paper that you find in exercise books, it will burn rapidly.
Yeah.
It's not a slow burn. So use it to help add a little zoom to it.
Fly swatter.
Yep, good fly swatter.
Bit of fly swatter.
Works really well, and it's smooth and it doesn't sting.
Yeah, but again, the idea of having, in this case it's a blank one, but if you did pre-prepare, again, if talking about a cache that might be a critical part of a plan, having an extra copy of cache locations or maps, etc., the things that you and your team are going to need in a cache supply, because it is a resupply, great to have that on hand.
On that note, one little comment I just feel I have to pass, and that is if you're going to put confidential or really crucial information like that in, please encode it in a code that there's no decryption method or tips with it. A great suggestion is to use a one-time pad, but note that and keep that page from the one-time pad aside specifically for it, because you don't want to tell people if they stumble across your cache where absolutely every other cache of yours is, or what your plans are.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I can't stress this enough.
OPSEC.
Make this a case of being customized to yourself and your plan. If you're going to be putting this in an easily accessible location, like again, let's just say you've got a friend, he has a store, and you've said, hey, can I just put this box of items here because we're good mates and you're a part of my team, etc. If that's in a storeroom, he has a restaurant, that potentially could be mistaken as an item that one of his employees might decide to have a look in by accident. And then of course, you've got sensitive materials in there, everyone knows. But if it was your private land and it was going to be in an unmarked burial spot, then obviously it's much harder for someone to know where that is and get access to it and then know your plans and the like. So again, those sensitive informations, those expensive materials like the knives that we were talking about before, only include them if you are either happy to lose them if something goes wrong, or if you can be pretty well assured that no one else is going to get access to it. Would you agree with that kind of idea?
I completely agree with that, Bushcraft. At the end of the day, guys, remember OPSEC, operational security.
Yeah.
And remember also the most important rule of OPSEC, need to know.
Yeah.
Only those that truly need to know, get to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else can find out when the time is necessary.
Yeah, no, exactly right.
So where were we?
Yep, so I'm just coming through here. So we've got here some pencils, right? Some lovely pencils. These are excellent items that you can utilise for writing into here.
They can be sharpened with a knife that we've included. If you guys have a quick look here, we have a snap-off blade, utility blade. So when one section goes blunt, snap it off, and you've got another one ready to go.
Yep, exactly right. A side note, just on that knife, since you brought it up, we've left it in the packaging. Now, a lot of these items are still in the packaging. We've done that for a couple of reasons. For the knife, most pertinently, is the fact that if something were to happen to jostle the knife around, you can be assured that it's not going to puncture the MRE, it's not going to puncture the rice, it's not going to cause damage to your toilet paper and the like, any other sensitive materials. So for us, we've decided to do that. You might, if you're really going to be pedantic about it and you really needed to get as much space or as much stuff into your compact space, you could do something to keep that same idea, maybe just cutting along the edge to make it a more form-fitting case but still protecting the blade. Moreover from that, perhaps you wanted to put like a rubber seal or something, but again, up to you what kind of ingenuity you can get into that.
And at the end of the day, guys, the packaging that specific utility knife is in is a type that if you use your strength, you can tear the packaging open yourself. Yeah. You don't need, it's not one of those really secure packaging like you'd find expensive items like USB devices in, which have to be cut open. This is packaging you can tear. This is not a blister pack, it is cardboard that's got plastic glued onto it.
More from that, a lot of the things that are in here, like some of this packaging, obviously not the plastic, but the cardboard itself, could be, if necessary, utilised to start a fire.
It's a good slow burn. Just one cautionary item. Because the cardboard has got a clear coat and has ink on it, use only in a well-ventilated location and stand back from the fire because it could be toxic.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Again, depending on your plan, depending on your circumstance, these are items that you can or can't use, and that's it. User discretion advised, obviously.
Yep.
So moving through here, we've got ourselves some tea. Who doesn't love a bit of tea? Very refreshing, great way to keep yourself hydrated and the like. Add a bit of flavour, keep the morale up high. This here is a 10-pack, so that's going to last you a couple of tea sessions. It is a 10-pack. I thought for a second it was a 20-pack.
No.
So use for yourself. It's a couple of tea sessions. Use with a mate. It's a couple less. Here we've got some string.
80 metres.
80 metres. Plenty of string. Now look, it's not. It's no bloody paracord, but at the same time, if you wanted to do some trapping or the like, hold some things together, then you can think of numerous reasons to utilise that.
One comment on that.
Yep.
Remember, guys, trapping and snaring is illegal in most parts of the world, with the exception being some parts of America. As such, it is only ever permissible in an absolute emergency survival situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Check with your local laws and make sure that you're compliant. You always say. On that note here, we've included some skewers. These ones weren't purchased, but of course you could purchase them. It's one of those perishable items that you happen to have around the house. A nifty thing that you could do with these is wrap them around a stick, put them in a configuration, and make yourself a little implement that you could use for spearfishing. But again, in a lot of circumstances, I know here in Australia, spearfishing is actually illegal. But
in an emergency situation, most countries and authorities will let it go if it is truly a survival situation and you had no other option.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I keep saying it, but at the same time, depending on your plan, your location, and the situation you're based in, you've really got to do whatever you've got to do. Then you do whatever you got to do. But following on from there, we've got ourselves some Allen keys. Allen keys are a nifty little tool that if you do have some devices or a vehicle or other things.
A lot of mounts, for example. A lot of things use what they call set screws. Now, set screws are operated primarily by Allen keys or hex keys, as they're also called.
Yep. So they're one of those items that you can utilise for a couple of different things. It was down there, so we thought we'd include it. Why not?
An extra $2.33 cents. It's worth it.
We've got here a paint scraper, or at least that's its primary focus. Paint scraper
could be a burger scraper or flipper for all you know, or a bacon scraper. Just give it a good wash. We've just ripped the label off, which is why it's a little tarnished. But
yeah, that too. Also, it's got a bit of an edge there, so if you could be utilised as a defence item if necessary. Could be modified to be used as a flathead screwdriver, again, depending on what is required.
One of the best things also is, if you want to turn it into a good blade, rub it against a rock at an angle to get the tip of it into a nice thin point, and you'll have a very nice blade fairly quickly. It mightn't hold an edge for long, but it'll work in a scrape.
Yeah, absolutely. In a scrape. Paint scraper in a scrape.
Pun intended.
Well
Pun intended.
Here's something that I threw in as a joke, but Survival said that it was just too funny to leave out.
Basically, well, look, to be honest, yes, it started as a joke, but I decided that it would be a wonderful thing to put in. Now, here at Assessed Bushcraft and Survival, we are 100% for responsibility, and we want everything to be as family friendly as possible. Now, this joke started because I threw in long grain rice, 1/2 kilo. Great staple, great food to help you get by. Little goes a long way, makes you feel fairly full. Now, we needed something to flavour that. So, initially, I thought, hey, let's get some stock cubes. So we got beef, vegetable, and chicken flavour stock cubes, which you can see here. And then Bushcraft decided, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we had some brandy in it? And because we want to keep this family friendly, and as such, we don't encourage people to drink alcohol, because we know that when abused, and it can be abused fairly easily, leads to people having addictions and problems. We thought, what's the best thing to do? Imitation brandy flavouring essence. Non-alcoholic, a little goes a long way, and it helps add a better flavour and let you not just have a bland dish. It helps excite the flavour of your dish.
Yeah, see, this is one of those one of those moments or one of those items that, you know, across the board, you know, when it comes to the tea, the stock, the brandy, the long grain rice, even the MREs, really, these are all luxury items that if you were just dropped there and then onto a small island, you won't have. You know, you've got let's just say you've got coconuts there, you're going to make yourself a blade out of a rock, you're going to try and smash open some coconuts and maybe make yourself a hut out of some trees and whatever it might be, right? As crazy as you've got to get to try and get yourself to survive. But if you were sitting there and you were thinking to yourself, you know what would make this really good? If I had myself an axe, I'd be able to cut down trees a lot better. If I had myself a blade, I'd be able to cut up this fish a lot easier. If I had myself a fishing rod, I'd be able to catch fish a lot easier. You know what I'm saying? So all of these items here, it's a luxury. You're preparing on purpose because you want to be able to give yourself the best chance of survival. And so having any of these items, we joke, brandy, making your rice taste a little bit nicer, it's a bit of a joke, but at the same time it's going to keep your morale high, it's going to keep you energetic, it's going to keep you thinking about what it is you need to do.
And remember,
exactly
guys,
the idea.
Survival is 99% morale, 1% knowledge and capability. If you don't have the psychological mindset to survive, you will not survive no matter how well prepared you are. And as I said before, this flavouring, it's an imitation flavouring, completely alcohol free. Just checking on here. Yep, alcohol free. And, you know, a tiny bit goes a long way. Put it in, it gives you variety.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to be doing is having the same thing again and again and again. I mean, this rice is, what do you reckon, Bushcraft, about 10 meals worth? If you're rationing it out?
Yeah, I can say that, sure.
Because remember, the key is, this is to help fill your stomach. Because if you feel full, you'll last longer because you'll trick your body. Because instead of starving, if you can put a little bit in your body as you go, your body will let you do a lot more before starting to shut down.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Moving on from there, let's have a look. We've got some, let's look at this. Got a can opener, a side opening can opener. If you happen to have, because again, this is primarily made to be more of a resupply, so let's just say you happen to, given that this is on the homestead, we happen to have cans available, and if we were going to bug in, and then for whatever reason our can opener is broken, we happen to know that we have a spare can opener in our cache out here. And we can
rip it out
so
and put it to use.
Great case of 2 is 1, 1 is none. We've got a can opener inside, it's busted, well that's okay, we've got a second one out here. Practical uses, obviously it opens cans. Nifty feature is that because it opens from the side, you can use the remnant can as something else, obviously being careful to clean up the edge so you're not cutting yourself on that. One of the reasons I guess I could see this being useful in a survival situation where you're bugging out, you've now got yourself a can opener that if you were to stumble across extra supplies that were canned and didn't have the convenient ring pull, you now have a very easy way of opening it up. This particular one is very lightweight, so while a little bit open or a little bit large, it is very lightweight, so it doesn't take up or provide too much extra weight to a pack when carrying. Moreover from that though, this cache in particular, as mentioned, is going to be on our homestead. So if for whatever reason we're inside and we're bugging in, we've got ourselves our own little collection of cans, our can opener does break, we know that we have another can opener on site that's relatively easy to get to. Yeah, with that in mind though, I mean, Survival, do you have anything else you'd like to add for the can opener?
There's not really too much more to say other than one of the benefits to being a side cutter is should a ring pull break off without opening a ring pull can, you can still safely remove the top of the can. Whereas traditional can openers, they leave a very sharp edge. So if you try and scrape stuff out, but your finger accidentally gets between the scraping device, be it a spoon or a fork or a knife, and the rim of that can, you'll get cut. Whereas by cleanly removing the top, you've got a lot less chance of actually hurting yourself scraping the contents out.
Absolutely, that's very fair. Alright, so we've also got, as I mentioned previously before, we've got ourselves a box cutter or a Stanley knife. What I can say about that is that it's used to cut things, so if you have things that need to be cut, you have a blade to cut them.
Now this specific utility knife that we have, unlike a traditional box cutter which uses one of those blades that's usually double-ended where you blunt one side, you take it out, you turn it around, put it back in and you've got another side, this one uses break-off segments. So when you blunt a segment, you simply take it forward, use pliers, which you'll find on your multi-tool, which everyone should have on them. You simply snap the blunt part off, advance the blade, you're good to go again. How handy is that, guys?
Yeah, actually, note on that, this particular version of a box cutter, which I'm familiar with, inside here internally is a little bit of plastic. It's like a little clip. That's actually, its purpose is to be taken off, because obviously this is an interchangeable blade, to, at the extended bit of blade, use to lever and break off that blunt bit of metal. Not all box cutters have that feature.
Some do.
But yeah, a primary concern of them is being usable and user-friendly, so they do tend to include that. So if you do have one, have a look, because that's a little feature that not a lot of people know about. Moving on from there, we've included here a candle. Now this candle is not to celebrate your unborn child's 0th birthday, but actually, because of all of the candles, this one is a great example of having the most amount of wax for the same amount of money.
Now, bushcraft, why would we want a candle and wax in the bush?
Well, that's a grouse question. I know that you could utilise it for sealing things. My favourite way of using candle wax is actually to waterproof matches. So if you had yourself some of these matches, which we have over here, and you wanted to improvise waterproofing for them for whatever reason, perhaps you're going to go through a water fording exercise, and you've got some matches on you, you're going to keep them with you. Obviously you can dip them in some wax, and there you go, you've got yourself some waterproof matches for when you have to use them on the other side. Matches, what can you use matches for? Lighting fires. That's, I guess we move on. No, but
what do you need a fire for? You need it for for psychological help, because when you're out and it's lonely, or you're having to survive, and it's getting not just physically but also psychologically harsh and hard on you, what they call the television of a bush, as they say colloquially here in Australia, fire is the television of a bush. Just watching it, let it mesmerise you a bit, it'll get your morale straight back on track. Just make sure you keep it under control, and at a size that is a utility fire. Huge fires like bonfires, unless given special permission and permits are in place and fire brigade have been notified, are illegal in this country. So make sure it's a fire for utility, which is keeping warm, or for cooking food. And at the same time, use it for a slight bit of entertainment to help keep your morale up. We also have, over at the side here, we have a Phillips head screwdriver. Why do we have that? Really simple. It makes a great prying device. It makes a good scraper. You never know. A lot of your equipment, look, your cameras, any trail camera, some of the older GPS units, numerous other bits of equipment that you could have with you, use primarily Phillips head screws to secure panels in place. Or, for example, your vehicle. Your vehicle's going to have Phillips head screws all over it. If you need to remove a screw to get to, say, a fuse box, if it's an older vehicle, because traditionally they were screwed in place, not clipped in place. So it gives you the ability to open, anything that's screwed in place in order to effect repairs to help affect your survival. Now remember, guys, your first goal, other than having protection, water and food, we mentioned that in one of our survival tips, about the rule of 3x2. Please remember what comes first, PWF, to remind you of the priorities of your survival. Beyond that, anything and everything you can use to your advantage to affect your survival, you should have. Whether it's in your pack or in a resupply cache like this one.
Exactly right. Alright, so a couple of last items that we have here, some pegs, some hooks, and PVC drop sheet. The pegs, look, you've got yourself some clothes, you want to put up a line, you need to dry them, etc. Make yourself an improvised clothesline, fantastic.
A tripwire.
That was what I was going to get to next. That's the more exciting one, tripwire. Utilise these hooks with this peg, as well as the string that we had over here, and you've got yourself an improvised tripwire mechanism.
One of the best things to do, guys, if you want to set up a tripwire, then we're not talking about using it to hurt anyone, because that would be illegal anywhere in the world. What we're talking about is if you've got a bunch of, say, tins or something that you can drop at the side in a safe location, but that can alarm you or alert you to the presence of someone or something. Depending on what's happened, if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and you're starving for food and you need to hunt some game, if you know there's a game trail, you could set basically an alarm that animal could trip, alerting you to its presence so that you could attempt to obtain it
in a legal fashion.
In a legal manner. Without the pegs, you wouldn't be able to easily set an alarm system.
Yeah. So I mean, think about that. You know, you utilise the can opener with those cans now freshly prepared, cleaned out, and eaten all the contents of. Tying those up with this, utilising the hooks.
And as you can see, guys, we have a nice assortment of hooks here. So we've got some square, so like 90-degree L-shaped ones, some small, some large, and we've got some small 90-degree L-shaped ones as well. That way, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you should be able to achieve almost everything. And finally, as Bushcraft mentioned before, we have a PVC drop sheet at the side. Right here, this one. Sorry guys, in America, we're a metric country here in Australia. There's approximately 3 feet 3 inches to a metre. So, apologies, but you guys will have to do that math yourself. This is a 2.6 by 3.6 metre PVC drop sheet. This is great if you need a little bit of shelter from the elements, or if you need to shelter your equipment whilst you go off and do something else, so it doesn't get drenched by the time you get back. Really handy to have. And in a pinch, leave it folded over a few times, wrap it around yourself. You have a great emergency poncho, because remember, exposure kills, guys.
Absolutely. I mean, moreover from that, you could utilise that to make an improvised shelter as well. You know, hang that up with the...
We've got the duct tape over there on top of plastic bags.
Yeah.
We've left those in because remember, guys, here at Assessed Bushcraft and Survival, we believe in looking after your environment, treating Mother Nature right. She'll look after you most of the time. We believe in the principle of leave no trace. Take all your rubbish with you. So we've left specifically all the bags that we got when we purchased these items. And we did specifically ask for a couple extra bags, which the shop was happy to oblige with, being a local business. That way, we had not just enough bags to take everything, but also some extra to utilise. So let's say, for example, you managed to get a fish. What if you want to put it in a bag to protect it, you know, and keep it cool? Dam up a little bit of a river at the edge with some rocks, put it in the bag, weigh the bag down with some rocks. You've got a great little thing. We actually, as a matter of fact, did that several years ago when we were up in the high country with some eggs that I forgot the guy's name, but which a really nice guy gave us, because he was camped out at the same place as well, and we wanted to keep him cool, along with, remember, I think it was a pack of bacon, Bushcraft?
Yeah, they were, that was a funny one. They were going to be packing up. They had themselves a full assortment, because they were camper van camping. So they said, look, we've got all this stuff here, we're actually moving off for the day. You guys are out here bare bones. Maybe you guys might want some luxury items that you probably haven't brought up yourself. So yeah, we got ourselves a carton of eggs that was mostly full. I think there was about 10 eggs in there.
A bag of sugar, which we could make a little bit of sugar water from. Boiling water, a bit of sugar. Real great pick-me-up.
Yep.
Not something to abuse or have a lot of, but a great pick-me-up and morale booster.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well as some bacon. It was really nice.
That was absolutely phenomenal. Bacon and eggs out in the bush. Bacon and eggs, who doesn't love that in general? But
and he also gave us a nice bit of chicken, because just before he went off, he found there's this extra bit of beautiful succulent breast fillet chicken.
Yeah.
And he goes, guys, it's only going to go to waste where we're heading.
Yeah.
Do you guys want it?
Yeah.
And so we actually used this method of using some rocks to basically dam off a little bit, letting some water keep going through to make what we refer to as the bush refrigerator. And it worked brilliantly, didn't it, Bushcraft?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we don't necessarily take that kind of stuff up because, carrying eggs, and that's a bit of a pain.
And they're very fragile, guys. You know, if one breaks, you could ruin everything in your pack. It's a risk we'd rather not take.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If someone's willing to share with us, we're more than happy to help. And that's one thing we also do endorse. If you're out in the bush and you're camping with a lot of luxuries and there's someone there that doesn't have all the luxuries, we encourage you to actively be involved, help them out, offer them a luxury item or two. It's all part of being a good community, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, assuming that you're not going to negatively affect your own survival, because if you're not there in general, you're going to look after yourself, we can look after somebody else. But yes, if you have a little extra,
share it around.
Stingy, karma. It all comes back in the end. All right, we're going to pack this up now, and we'll see you in a second.
So guys, Bushcraft and I are going to start packing this cache up. So guys, we've just created effectively an artificial improvised gasket. We don't know how well it's going to work, but it's better than nothing. Tape is cheap, the contents isn't. That's a nice tight seal there, Bushcraft. A little difficult to push down in parts, but that's a good thing. If it's hard for us to seal, to actually push down, that means it's going to be a nice tight seal. Just checking what's stopping us. It would seem our scraper was starting to stop us. So, little repositioning of some of our equipment. We should be able to get the lid down and in place. Now guys, it's not uncommon that this takes a little bit of work to get done. It's quite a common problem.
Remember, it was a pretty solid, it was a pretty tight fit. Is that all?
Ah, guys, hilarious. We realised what we did wrong. We didn't clear all the spots for the lid to actually push between. Our bad. But it is proving we have a very tight seal. That's always a good thing, guys. Always a good thing. Tighter the seal, better she'll last. Now, just to tape up the outside. So guys, we've put our lid on with its artificial gasket that we've made, our improvised gasket. We have taped the outside, but most importantly, we've also taped across our latches to keep them down. If they lift at all, then our artificial gasket is completely compromised. So as you can see, we've taped under, come across, and we've given it a lot of surface area across here to give it the best chance at actually staying in place, nice and tightly. So now, we're just going to do a quick inspection. So, what we want to do is just check, is it sealed? You know, do we have any compromised locations? Looks good to me, guys. We're going to go and have to bury this cache now.